Welcome, everybody, and on this week's episode of The Rundown presented by Dick's Sporting Goods, Vancouver prevails over the Rapids. San Diego make their way to Mile High, and then we go off the pitch with Sam Bassett. Let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the Colorado Rapids podcast on this week's edition of The Rundown presented by Dick's Sporting Goods. I am your host, Mike Ravolo, joined alongside my good friend and the resident Rapids legend, Drew Moore. Drewby, not the most ideal of weekends. We'll get into it, but outside of that, how we doing? How we feeling on this Monday morning?
Doing all right, I got to go to Vancouver this last weekend.
Yeah, switch of roles. You traveled and I didn't this time around.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened there.
They can't put us both together,
Too much.
Other
that's a power couple out there.
Other cities can't handle that, Other MLS cities cannot handle Drew Moore and Mike Ravolo together, so I understand it.
Did you so in Vancouver, did you take some time to go around Stanley Park, the park that's kind of right outside downtown in Vancouver?
Of course. I always try to. The weather on Saturday was amazing. It was perfect. And even Friday when we got in. And I've made it very known on this podcast that Vancouver is my favorite away trip, right? And
very known? Extremely known.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I got to get out on Saturday. It was perfect. Like the sun was shining. The air was still a little cool because it's still spring, early spring, but it was warm enough. Just a perfect morning to walk around the park there. And then Sunday morning when we left, it was like exactly what you expect in Vancouver, like dark, cloudy, rainy, miserable, like a perfect day to get out of there. So the weather was amazing. The trip to Vancouver, it's such a beautiful city.
Yeah,
so got to get a little bit of that Vancouver air.
Well, that's nice. Fairly similar to Colorado. Like April, you don't know what you're gonna get on some days. Like it'll be nice and sunny and warm. Other days, you just get snow out of nowhere. Yeah. Well, granted, Vancouver was just cold, dark, and dreary that Sunday. But Stanley Park, that's always nice to go out and typically what I do is rent a bike, go around, ride around for 30 to 40 minutes, and it's the best way to start off the day before a game day. That's the last couple of years that I'd been. Always a very nice way to start the day.
Good coffee places in Vancouver too. I didn't hit any of them up, but it's a good vibe there. It's a good vibe on a Saturday morning, in the spring. So enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, of course. I at least got something out of that trip in Vancouver. Of course, as we're referencing here with the Rapids, they were, of course, on the road against the Vancouver Whitecaps this weekend at BC Place. And so Drew and I were going to look through the highlights here just to get a look at what happened over the weekend at BC Place. Here the guys making their way to the pitch. And then, of course, to start off, Drew, Kevin Cabral with a chance in the 5th minute.
It was a bright start from the Rapids. First 5-7 minutes, they got a couple corners and this Cabral opportunity. Not a lot in it, but it seemed like things were going to go well early on in the game.
And then Vancouver had already a couple moments here of some danger. This is one of them in the 15th minute where Zach has to make a save. Just
good reaction save from Zach and puts it in an area where none of the Whitecaps attackers can get back after it. But it quickly went awry here, Mike.
And then, after a couple chances where Vancouver was looking dangerous, finally Brian White, of all people, ended up scoring that goal to get Vancouver in the lead.
Even when you mishit a shot as Brian White, it still ends up in the back of the net and just not defended well. You have to have a body closer to Brian White in the 18-yard box. He's scored 15-plus goals in multiple seasons now, and there's a reason why, and you got to be close to him.
And then here, just later, good ball in behind the Rapids defense, and that's Vancouver 2-0. Just
too passive from the Rapids defensively, not proactive enough. Nobody closes the ball down. It's good play by Ali Ahmed and Sabi, who showed that he can be an effective player for the Whitecaps on the night, but just too passive from the Rapids defensively.
Taking it to the second half in the 73rd minute, Ali Ahmed with a chance here, but Zach steps up once again.
This was a really good save from Zach. It looks like Ali Ahmed's going to go, try to curl it into the back post and then quickly closes the hips, but Zach didn't take the bait and makes a really good save and kept us in it at the time. But it finishes 2-0, unfortunately.
2-0 Vancouver with the 3 points at home versus the Colorado Rapids. And statistically looking at this, Drew, it looked like the match was fairly similar, but we'll get into what we made of the match itself watching through the 90 minutes. So in terms of shots, it was 15 in favor of Vancouver, 9 for the Rapids, and shots on goal, 5 for the Whitecaps, 0 for the Rapids. Corners, 7 for Vancouver, 8 for the Rapids. Possession was pretty evenly split between 50.7% for the Whitecaps, 49.3% for the Rapids. So, like I mentioned, Drew, just looking at the statistics there, that one strictly off that, one would think that this felt like maybe a bit more even of a match. But what did you make of the match overall? You being there in Vancouver, watching the game live in the stadium.
Yeah, the statistics don't always tell the story. The 0 shots on goal obviously is what stands out for the Rapids. Just not good enough on the ball, right? Whether it was in build-up play or transition, it seemed too often we would work hard to win the ball back and then give it right back to Vancouver. And we knew Vancouver was a good team coming into this match, right? They were right near, if not at the top of the table. They are at the top of the table now, but actually watching them in person and being at BC Place on Saturday night, it's like, man, they're a very good team that have very few weaknesses, and they punished the Rapids. And they defend well, they defend compact, and the Rapids just at times defensively just too stretched out, too much space to play through them. Vancouver had some long diagonals that stretched us out as well. But for me, we were poor on the ball. Too many easy giveaways. When we did go in transition, made the wrong choice, or just the quality of pass or the pass selection just wasn't quite there. We just seemed out of sync, and it was a tough match against, like I said, a very good team that didn't seem like they had CCC on their mind at all. Seemed to have plenty of energy, and there's something to be said for rhythm as well, right? We made a big deal last week about Vancouver. They could be fatigued. They've played more games. They just played Wednesday night, but they're also just playing games basically, and so there's something to be said for you just keep going, right? It's like, 3 days later, there's another game. Let's just keep doing what we've been doing, and they used that on Saturday night, but too many self-inflicted wounds from the Rapids on both sides of the ball, and this is what happens against good teams.
Of course, the end result wasn't what the Rapids wanted, right? But I think to be fair, first 10 minutes or so that the Rapids had the Vancouver Whitecaps on their heels, it was just constant press, the counter press. It was the couple chances where they looked like they had a decent chance on goal. That we showed one with Kevin with that early shot. There was another shot that we didn't show, albeit wide and over, but the Rapids definitely were on the front foot to start this match, but as you saw and as we mentioned, Drew, this is where it just wasn't clicking for the Rapids in the end. Just the straight pass here, couldn't connect as many passes as we need to, because there's value in having possession, right? Even though we're a team that likes to sometimes go on the counter in transition, there's something to be said to hold on to the ball so that you kind of give yourself a rest, give yourself a moment to kind of reset, regroup, and then see if you can find something out, because it felt like they could never regain that rhythm that they had to start the match. Sure.
The ball is so valuable, and against a team like Vancouver and what's coming here to Dig Sporting Goods Park on Saturday night, the ball is so valuable, and you can see the frustration starts to creep in a little bit when you do work hard to win the ball back and then give it away immediately. The frustration, you can see some of the body language, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. And again, against good teams in this league, which there's a lot of them. Vancouver is right now the best in the league, I would say. And so if you start giving them the ball and you don't make them chase even just a little bit, they're going to have life. And San Diego's another team on Saturday night that I know we're going to get into, but the ball is still so precious and valuable. And at times, if you're not going to go in transition and try to score goals, you have to be able to knock it around and make teams chase a bit.
Learning lesson, and again, this is something where even going back to last year, when we talk about this group, that despite a loss, especially against a good side against Vancouver, there's learning lessons to be had. You take those and carry them into the next match, right? And more often than not, this team has given us every reason to be optimistic and a reason to think that they're going to bounce back. We saw that already this year when the Rapids lost here at Dig Sporting Goods Park at home, of all places, 3-0 to the Portland Timbers, which was very surprising. But knowing that the Timbers have kind of been a bit of a bogey team for the Rapids, in an instance here or there. But then they bounce back and play one of the best teams in the league in Charlotte at home and earn a very, very, very hard-earned 2-0 win against a very, very good team. So, again, no guarantees that something like that is going to happen against the upcoming match against San Diego, which we'll get into in a bit. But this group has shown and given every reason to think that they're going to bounce back and find a result to kind of find the correct path and put kind of a course correct, if you will.
Since Chris Armas has taken over at the start of last season, very rarely has this Rapid side dropped 2 in a row. And that's your bounce back ability, being able to have a short memory about bad losses, which this was, Portland was, to then respond and come back and and prepare through the week and get ready for the next match is big. And Chris Armas' side here with the Rapids has shown that ability, and I expect them to do everything they can to maintain that here with San Diego coming to town.
The result, of course, not what the Rapids wanted, but a couple positives that we can pick out from this match.
Yeah.
One in particular that I think of is Sam Vines.
Mm-hmm.
This is only his first appearance in all of 2025 between CCC and MLS. He'd been dealing with an injury kind of stretching back from preseason that we'd seen. Drew, you'd been in Mexico stretching as far back as that. And so it's nice to see that Sam Vines was back in the fold, back to full fitness. It came on in the 55th minute, so had plenty of time to get his legs under him, try to find a rhythm a bit later in the match, but just trying to slowly work his way into the group and hopefully into a starting role that we know that he can fulfill, especially with that verticality that he provides, the attacking options that he provides on his part.
It's great to have Vinesy back. We've certainly missed him, and not just for him playing as the left back, but Ian Murphy can now focus a bit more on being the natural center back that he is. He's done a great job filling in as a left back, especially with Reggie Cannon out at the weekend as well. But it provides a bit more competition at the left back spot, a bit more competition at the center back spot. You can hopefully keep Keegan as a right back because there have been a couple different left backs, but Vinesy being back is huge, and for him to get some minutes under his belt in Vancouver, albeit in a tough result and tough match, will be good for his confidence when he does get back in the starting 11.
Yeah, and there was one other guy I wanted to point out, but before I get to that, I wanted to kind of make a note of Ian where I think it's commendable the job that he's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's naturally a center back.
Yeah.
But has been playing outside back in the moments when he's been called upon to do so. I mean, Drew, you have experience in this where you are naturally a center back, but you've played outside back, but with the national team in some instances or throughout your career here in MLS. Like, can you provide folks some perspective on how difficult that is to shift from center back to right back? Because it's very difficult to shift from one position to the next, regardless of where it is. But in this instance, from center back to right or left back for Ian, at least,
it's difficult. I did play a more outside back on both the right and the left side than people might realize over the course of my career. Going from center back to outside back, it's a completely different position, even though it's right next, they're right next door to each other, especially in the modern game and MLS these days. And Ian's done such a good job of, you can see he keeps it simple, right? He still defends well. He doesn't get isolated, as much as some outside backs do because of his positioning, because he's smart, because of his communication, abilities, and then simple in possession. But it's a completely different position, and so very commendable the job that he's done. And who knows, maybe he'll have to go back out there at some point. Hopefully not, because it means we have options out there. But he's done well, and it's a difficult transition.
Yeah, and I mean, who's to say that there isn't a world, right, where you don't have Ian Murphy and Sam Vines on the pitch at the same time, right? If you listen, I'm not there with the coaching staff in terms of figuring out what the game plan is for the upcoming weekend, right? But is that where in an instance where you do a 3-back, right, with Cheeto, Andreas, Ian, and then as your wing backs is if it's Keegan or Reggie on the right hand side, Vinesy, Jackson, whoever you plug into the left hand side as well. But I think it's nice to see that competition that we have with the quality of players that we have that speaks to that really. And just the competition that creates for these few spots that you have for only 11 spots on the pitch, right? So, but I think it's a good thing to have in this group, and I think lets the quality show from these players and having that competition. So, and then finally, like I said, there was one other guy I wanted to make a note of, which is very noteworthy, is with Sam Bassett, who this was his MLS debut that he made on Saturday at Vancouver. Of course, he made his professional debut when he subbed on in the first leg of the CCC match against LAFC here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. I get cold just thinking about that match, dude. My God.
Still cold from that
My
match.
fingers are still kind of trying to get themselves together after that. So he subbed in for Cole, of all people, for Mr. Cole Bassett, his brother, in the 86 minutes. So nice for Sam to be able to feature, finally get some MLS minutes under the belt and kind of get that off his chest. And so it was like, okay, now I've made my professional debut. Now made my MLS debut. Let's just kind of hit the ground running and let's go from there.
Yeah, it's great to see Sam on the field. He probably would have liked to have gotten more minutes in his debut, but even just a few minutes, it does wonders to your confidence. I remember my debut was like 6 minutes, right? I came on in the 84th minute. And I felt so great that night and the next day, and hopefully the same, is true for Sam. He had a great preseason. He's a little bit of time with the twos just to get game minutes. and stay sharp and stay fresh. But great to see him get his league debut, and hopefully he can just continue to gain confidence and be a part of the plans moving forward here.
You mentioned your first time when you made your. What's that feeling?
It was a long time ago, Mike. I know.
How long ago? Let's not get into that. But what is that feeling like, man? Because I can only as someone who never played professional football, I can only imagine how incredible of a feeling it is when you think about all the work that you put in individually, but then the village it takes between your family, friends, other folks that you've known along the way who help you get to that moment, and just have that moment, right? Even if that's all it ever comes to in your professional career. Like, for folks who don't know, kind of provide that perspective, what that moment is like.
It's special, and you wanna remember it, you wanna capture it, but it's difficult because you have to go into a game, especially late in a game, and the adrenaline's pumping. You're thinking about 1,000 different things. And I remember the first time the ball came to me, I absolutely rocketed it at a midfield. At a midfielder. It was Richard Mulrooney, basically at his throat, wow. Right? And he just jumped up and brought it down on his chest and passed it. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a professional player now. I could do those. I can get away with those kind of things. But yeah, my family was there because it was in Dallas. But yeah, special moment, and for Sam to come on and give Cole a high five as he's on his way off the field was probably pretty special. And like I said, Sam Bassett, he's done a great job, and really looking forward to him continuing to build off of even just a few minutes.
Yeah, Richard Mulrooney. This is me going on an MLS tangent right now. He was in Houston, part of those MLS Cup winning teams. Am I remembering correctly?
He was a part of Houston. I don't know I think he won with them in
was it 06, 07, one of those?
I don't know if he was with them.
So
yeah,
maybe
this is me on an
MLS tangent, because I remember I grew up on those.
He was with
players.
Dallas in 05 and 06 at least. He might have been with them in 07. But yeah, he was a part. He was just a solid, very, very good two-way midfielder in MLS early days back in the aughts.
Yeah, that's kind of like the era that I kind of grew up on a little bit. Some of those players that I can think of. So before we go on an MLS tangent, let's move on to off the pitch with Sam Bassett. But before we even do that. We got
let's talk about the Colorado Rapids app.
Rapids app. So, of course, we've mentioned it multiple times, but guys, it is as handy, as helpful as it can be in terms of being your one-stop shop for everything to do with the Rapids, right? If you're looking for videos, highlights, standings, scores, news, updates, anything to do with the Rapids, particularly, I would say, with the in-game experience, it's very helpful in that sense in terms of using your tickets, scanning them to get into the building, so you can watch your Burgundy Boys play here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. And then in terms of if you want to know what food you want to get, if you want to go to a certain a shop to be able to pick up a scarf, a jersey, a Headwaters kit. I know I got mine recently. I don't regret it one bit. It's just awesome.
It's a beautiful kit.
Anything to do with the Rapids, your one-stop shop is the Colorado Rapids app. So make sure you guys download it for free.
They do giveaways too. So if you have the notifications, the geofencing, whatever it is, turned on, you could get notifications for a giveaway. So
there you go. So you can only benefit from having the Colorado Rapids app. So make sure you guys download it for free today. All right, and we're going off the pitch with none other than midfielder Sam Bassett. Sam, how are we doing, man? Good to see you.
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No, dude, just super happy to have you and be able to take a chance to be able to talk to you, and for the fans to be able to hear from you as well, especially since now that you've officially joined the club on the first team side, and of course your relationship that you have with Cole, who folks will be aware of, that him being your older brother. To start off, Sam, I want to talk about obviously the over the weekend that you got to make your MLS debut at BC Place against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Obviously not under the most ideal circumstances, but what's it like for you to have that moment, that opportunity to step on the pitch and make your MLS debut?
Yeah, I think it was a really exciting moment. Obviously, really proud to be able to do it. Maybe it would have been a little bit cooler to be on the pitch with Cole and not sub in for him, and him not look so angry during the video of me coming on. But it was a really cool moment. Hopefully, many more to come.
Typical big brother, always ruining special moments for the little brother. But Sam, congratulations on your league debut. That's awesome. I know bright future in front of you for sure. You had a really, really good preseason. At least I think you had a really, really good preseason, and you've got some minutes with the first team because of that. How do you feel like you have progressed from preseason through the first 7 games of the regular season now?
I think it's definitely hard not playing every single game or not getting chances to get on the field. So I think those training sessions on Tuesday and Wednesday have been really important. Just focusing on those and just meeting with the coaches as well, getting insight as to where they see me on the field and what things I need to work on to ultimately get on the field. So I felt like just watching the guys and learning from the guys in my position, it's been really helpful, and hopefully show some more in training and be able to get out there and help the team win some more games.
I wonder if one of those things coaches have told you to work on was free kicks, because you have a professional goal with R2 last month against Real Monarchs. I didn't know you had this in you, but I am glad that you do. Talk me through your first professional goal.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I necessarily practiced it that much with the first team. It's usually always Djordje, Ollie, and Cole after training practicing, but I definitely had my fair share of them throughout college. So once I got the chance to step up, I don't know. I feel like I love shooting from distance. So to be able to score my first professional goal and to do it in that way was really cool. So hopefully I can do it for the first team, but maybe if Djordje gives me a chance.
That's what I was gonna say. Let's say you're on and there's a free kick like in a similar area. Are you gonna say Djordje, step aside? It's my turn.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna give me that opportunity.
I know he's definitely not.
Yeah, I guess depending on what the score is, we'll see.
Yeah.
Man, don't exactly practice them. I just step up and take the free kick and score something like that. Man, Sam's just flexing at this point now. Dude, no, it was an incredible goal, man. It was a really, really wonderful goal. In terms of teammates, obviously you have your brother Cole as a teammate now, and also as a roommate that you guys are living together as well. What's it been like having Cole officially now as a teammate and in the first team, and of course the living situation with your brother?
I think at the start it was just felt a little bit weird, like having him actually on the same field as me and training together, because usually it's just always different teams and we're always giving feedback to each other, watching each other's games. But having him like next to me 24/7 is really cool. We like to do a lot of the same things, so it's pretty easy, and just he's been through a lot, like 7 years now of being a pro, so he's been able to give me little pointers, so it's been really helpful.
I think it's cool, Sam. Like, yeah, your older brother who's made a name for himself on at this club is on your team, but you've carved out your own kind of path and way of doing it, and you're certainly an individual player that this team values at this club. And like I said, in preseason, you were fantastic. You've continued to be great through the first 7 games of league play and CCC. But we have to talk about y'all's wardrobe, because Cole's wardrobe is very monitored and critiqued and scrutinized at times here in the locker room. I see the cowboy hat behind you, which I absolutely love. And Cole's wardrobe was featured on Elevate. Who has the better wardrobe between you and Cole?
I mean, I'm obviously gonna say me, but I haven't got to show it as much yet. I've only had 2 outfits so far. But yeah, I would definitely say me. I think we definitely have different styles. I would say mine's a little more baggy.
Probably a good thing.
You can go watch the Elevate episode and see kind of how he picks his outfits out, but I definitely like mine better.
Okay, last question for me. Is Cole in the room with you right now?
Is he in the room with me?
Yes.
No, he's outside.
Okay.
But is it a different answer if he's in the same room as you?
If he's in the same room as me?
Yeah.
I would still say me.
No, I love it. That's fantastic. I wanted to do a follow-up on the living situation between you and Cole. Who's the tidier of the two? Like, who's the one that's like got everything in order, and the other who's like, bro, like you got to wash your dishes at some point. It's been a week now.
I would say we're both pretty tidy. Like, the people who come over, one of my DU teammates came over last week for dinner, and he was like, I love how clean you guys keep it. So I mean, we're both pretty clean, which is good, because I wouldn't say it's necessarily the same situation in college.
No, college is It's definitely a different time. I know just speaking from my own experience, it's definitely a different time. But listen, Sam, we appreciate you being able to take the time to join us here for Off the Pitch, and for fans to be able to get to hear from you, especially as you're really starting your professional journey, man. And it's in, you know, we're seeing your progression here at the club. The fans will eventually be able to kind of see that as you grow into your career, and of course with a goal like that against the Real Monarchs, I think is just a little taste of hopefully what fans can see more from you. So thank you, man, for Sam, for taking the time to join us for Off the Pitch, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
All right, Drew, let's go around MLS like we typically do every week to get a sense of what's going on around the league with certain teams, as, you know, the season is really starting to ramp up a little bit now that we're 7 match days in. So to start, which this was the news that we got after we had filmed the podcast last week, which is why we didn't mention it last week, when even though it happened that same day, was regarding Kansas City, right? So the match that we want to look at is Kansas City versus St. Louis. Kansas City earning a 2-0 win. That's their first win of the season, Drew, after 7 matches this season. And that happens after that they parted ways with Peter Vermes, who had been there since 2009 as their head coach, who we all know has left his imprint on that club, and I think is going to, you know, they'll always be there in terms of how he did things there. The 2 goals, you know, as it pertains to the match, Dan Joveljic, their DP forward, coming in big for them. Is there anything that you kind of took away from that match, Drew? Of course, outside of like Peter Vermes, who it was very strange to see him not on the sideline for KC. I'll say that much.
Well, yeah, if we can separate the two things, because Peter Vermes deserves a lot of credit for what he's built in Kansas City, and he made that club respected and fun to watch, and just the way he went about it, right? Like with the new stadium, he always kind of had a core group of guys that he would develop, and they won Open Cups, they won an MLS Cup, they were a perennial playoff team and contender, and so Peter Vermes really deserves. I know the last few years haven't been great for Sporting Kansas City, but the legacy that he built there, like I said, Sporting Kansas City has been Peter Vermes for 15 plus years now, and so he deserves a lot of credit for what he did. And I actually was an injured player and went with the Rapids to play against Sporting Kansas City in like 14 or 15, and just the match day experience, watching it from the player suite and just watching the fans and everything. Like he built a special place there, and it will continue to be because of Peter Vermes. In terms of the match, sometimes you get that new coach, even though Kerry Zavagnin was Vermes' right-hand man for a long time, but it's just a new voice. It's a fresh perspective. Guys feel like, maybe guys that were on the fringe, this is my opportunity to get into the squad or into the starting 11. Guys that were in the starting 11, I got to prove myself again. And I think maybe St. Louis was a good team for them to play, that wants to sit deep and try to win games 1-0, which we've talked about St. Louis the past several weeks on this podcast. But the new coach bump, maybe is it a real thing? I guess, but good to see a club like Kansas City getting their first win after what was probably a pretty difficult and interesting week for them.
Yeah, for them, hopefully they'll turn things around on their part and look forward and maybe earn a few more results along the way. Again, it'll be difficult again without someone like Peter Vermes, who left his imprint on the club, and I think will permanently be left there because of what he done and what he means, I think, to not just the club but the city in terms of what he created there in Kansas City. The next match I wanted to look at was our rivals in Real Salt Lake. They took on the LA Galaxy, another team that was winless going into this, remains winless after the end of this match. There was a 2-0 result in favor of Real Salt Lake. Diego Luna, we talked about how they got rid of some of the attacking talent around him. He just kind of has put this team on his shoulders and kind of carried them himself with the brace that he got on Saturday.
Diego Luna is very, very good. He is, and until some of the newer pieces start to find their form for Salt Lake, they're going to really heavily rely on Diego Luna. But the Galaxy, man, they're just, people shouldn't be surprised. Like they lost so many of their players from their MLS Cup winning side. Like, and Ricky Puig is out, and who knows when he's going to be back. And Painsel's missed a lot of the season. Peck wasn't there at the weekend. Delgado's out. Brugman is out. Joveljic is out. Like, what do people expect? And like Greg Vanny and his staff are I know working extremely hard to turn things around there, but it seems like they're a long way off of it. And this was an afternoon game, so I was able to watch it while in my hotel room in Vancouver, and I just don't think you can really take a whole lot away from it from either side, other than Diego Luna's a very good player.
Yeah, it's rough going right now for the Galaxy. We'll have to see kind of hopefully if their pieces start coming back that they can figure something out along the way. Where we saw Pencil, I was watching their CCC match against Tigres the past week, and he's a breath of fresh air. It's almost like a new signing in terms of getting him back from injury. And then you have Ricky Puig, he controls everything in that team, and everything goes through him. So missing someone like that is going to play a role. And then in terms of how they have to go about their business, right? When you're missing you don't have Mark Delgado, you don't have Joveljic, who's at KC now. When you're missing all these key pieces, I think naturally there was going to be a drop off from the previous year when you went on to win MLS Cup. So missing those pieces and then having a target on your back for being the MLS champs going into the season. Makes things pretty difficult.
And just being LA Galaxy, the all white, LA Galaxy strip, kit, like it means something, and they'll probably put a lot into their Champions Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup run, because a lot of people forget that they're actually still alive. They go to Tigres midweek after a 0-0 result at home last midweek. But yeah, it's been a tough start for them.
Yeah, it's an interesting sport. You never know if Galaxy goes and gets a result. I think you played in Volcan in Tigres, which I can't imagine is fun. Maybe as a fan, is a fun place to take. But for you guys, I think when Toronto at the time must have been kind of daunting. So, but you never know. This is a funny sport, man. Where the craziest things can happen. We've seen it happen. So we'll see maybe if Galaxy can kind of get their season going a little bit through CCC. And then the last match that I wanted to touch base on, which was, this was, I don't know if you could even call this a match the way it went, Drew. This was San Jose Earthquakes hosting DC United, which was literally the very first match to kick off the existence of Major League Soccer 30 years ago, which is crazy to think now that this league has been around for 30 years. San Jose, in a very celebratory mood after 6-1 domination of DC. Joseph Martinez, he gets a hat trick, so that moves him now to 6th all-time in MLS goals scored. It wasn't much of a contest, really, to Drew. I think DC, just didn't show up on the day.
Joseph Martinez said, "Eric Winaldo, hold my beer. I will show you how to score goals." But no, Joseph Martinez, he's called the king for a reason. Ever since he's come into Major League Soccer, this is what he does. And all three of his goals were class at the weekend, especially the third one. The touch, the turn, the lob over the goalkeeper. Yeah, I don't know if this was San Jose's first win since they won 2 in a row to start the season. DC United, I don't know. I know this was your team growing up, and you've spent time there. They seem to be all over the place right now. San Jose clearly showed with Arango, with Martinez. Pellegrino made a big impact in the match on Saturday. Christian Espinoza still. They can still attack. They can still score goals. They've got 15 goals this year. Can they defend? That's the big question. But it was an interesting match on the eve of the celebration after the inaugural match 30 years ago. Was it 29 years ago? I always forget. This is whatever. But interesting match for sure.
Yeah. Being from DC.
Yeah, you don't want to say too much.
It's that's just kind of you just kind of forget that it ever happened. It's like the Men in Black where they have that flashy kind of little stick, just flash that thing in front of me and forget it ever happened and just move on. Yeah, DC, I think they have a few things to sort out outside of that results. But for San Jose, that's a huge win for them, not just because they got the win, especially after this tough stretch that they had, which included us getting a 2-1 win rather on the road against them. I think just to kind of course correct and kind of find themselves back on the right path, if you will, especially with all that firepower that they have. That's still missing Hernan Lopez, who had the shoulder surgery and is going to be back after maybe a couple months at this rate. So San Jose's kind of, we'll see. Bruce Arena has a way of doing things, man.
It's still going to be an interesting and fun team to keep an eye on because of some of those storylines.
Yep. So that'll do it for around MLS. But let's just talk Rapids, bro. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to talk Rapids all day, and of course,
it's a big week.
It's a very big week, Drew. We were talking about tough matchups. This is one that the Rapids are coming off of this past weekend against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now they come home to Dick's Sporting Goods Park to take on San Diego FC. Typically historically with expansion teams, they've struggled to kind of transition into this league, make their way into this league, and find some way to get results, just do anything, right, to be able to get any sort of points to kind of find themselves a good standing. San Diego, they've just kind of blown through the doors and said, hey, we're here. We are here. We're here to make a statement. We're here to show that we're not just the expansion team that's looking to kind of get by. We're here to make a statement and show up and show that we're the real thing. We're the real deal. So as it pertains to that match, that's going to be the Colorado Rapids against San Diego FC this Saturday here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park.
Back home.
Always nice to be back home. Saturday, April 12th, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Of course, you can catch that match on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV, or better yet, you just come join all of us here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park to watch the match, support your Burgundy boys. In terms of form, Drew, San Diego FC, at the last 3 matches, they got a 2-1 loss at Austin. And these last couple matches is very impressive in terms of what they've done. The 3-2 win that they got versus LAFC, those 3 goals coming in the first half. Same thing against Seattle this past weekend where they beat them 3-0, 3 goals coming in the first half. Yep. In terms of the records between the two teams, the Rapids are 3-2-2, San Diego 4-1-2. On points, Rapids have 11, San Diego have 14. Goals that have been scored so far this season, Rapids have 8. San Diego, when you have 13 goals, it kind of helps when you're scoring 3 at a time in bunches against some teams. And then goals against, Rapids have 9 against, and then San Diego have 6. Finally, with the average possession that the Rapids are at 45.7%. And San Diego, as you could imagine, this is a team that really likes to possess the ball, 58.6% of the ball in terms of average possession this season. And that speaks to something that we wanted to touch base on as it pertains to their head coach, Mikey Varas, who kind of falls into that coaching tree, if you want to call it, under Greg Berhalter, right, who had been part of his staff for a number of years when Greg Berhalter was with the U.S. men's national team. This is a team with the highest possession percentage in the league and the highest passing accuracy in the league. That I feel like that kind of speaks for itself, Drew, in terms of this is a team that is going to possess the ball. They'll either lull you to sleep or tire you out with the ball.
They will, but it's interesting, and Varas made it very clear before the season started. He didn't want, to build this team as like a transitional team that's going to open up spaces, that is just going to look to attack, going direct and having athletes and getting into 1v1 situations. He wanted to, pass you to death in a way. But they're really good going forward, and not necessarily in transition, just their line splitting passes, right? Like they go forward and they go forward really well, and they run forward and they seem a lot more dynamic than just a team that possesses the ball almost 60%. Like when you hear that, I feel like you think Barcelona back in the day with Iniesta and Xavi, that just, tiki-taka side to side. That I don't think that is San Diego. Yeah, they will pass the ball well, but like they're passing the ball to set up, like going for the kill, essentially, I feel like. And so if you watch the goals that they scored and the chances that they create, a lot of times it's through vertical play and vertical passing. They're just really, really, really good at it with guys like De La Torre and Godoy and Dreyer and Chucky Lozano and Verskov. And like this is a very good team, a very exciting team that plays with energy while being able to possess the ball and move you from side to side.
Yeah, it's not just the way they play, but having the players to be able to play that way that they do, right? I look at this past week in the match against Seattle, there's one goal that Chucky Lozano ends up scoring. It speaks exactly to what you just said, Drew, where they'll possess the ball, but if they find an opportunity to play between the lines, in this instance, Verskov played between 2-3 lines, plays it to Dreyer, I think, who was out wide, and through them plays the ball into Chucky Lozano. In a moment's notice, the ball's in the back of the net, your net. And after San Diego just kind of, again, doing exactly what you said that they were going to do. Just to list some of the players, you had already mentioned quite a few of them, Drew. Chucky Lozano, he got his first goal, like I mentioned. He got his first goal for San Diego this season against Seattle and has that 1 goal and 3 assists so far on the season. Anders Dreyer, who's been magnificent for them so far, 3 goals and 2 assists. And then you look at their midfield, which for me, I'd mentioned before, and of course is much more relevant this time around as we're previewing this match against San Diego. You look at Luca De La Torre, Anibal Godoy, and Jeppe Verskov. Like that's almost as good as a midfield after having seen them a couple weeks now. This is probably as good as a midfield that you're going to see in this league in terms of how stable, how fluid, and how they just seem very put together, and it's very difficult to kind of get past them or defend them as well because of just how they are on and off the ball.
San Diego defends really well also, and they defend compact, right? And I think out of that that compact structure, that's how they can hit you with their deadly passing abilities as well. And you talked about Chucky Lozano's goal. They didn't lull Seattle to sleep in that play. They just caught them sleeping on that play, right? A loss of possession, and then boom, two 2 passes later, Chucky Lozano's in on goal, and so you better be switched on for 90 minutes on both sides of the ball. They remind me a little bit of Vancouver, right? Who we just played on Saturday night. So maybe this is a good time to get San Diego coming to our house, a team that defends well with compactness, can possess the ball nicely, but can also be direct at times. And so that could have been good preparation for this match against San Diego.
A team that can hurt you in many different ways. That's always something very difficult to defend against, whether it's on the cross, whether it's balls through the lines, in possession, good interplay. This, as you mentioned, this San Diego side can hurt you in many different ways, and I've shown it against many teams at this point, and against the best, LAFC, Seattle, amongst other teams that they played so far this season. In terms of a player that you want to keep an eye out on the San Diego side, Drew, I mean, there's a list of them, but who is one that you would pick in particular that is like, this is the guy for San Diego right now?
Well, we just listed, 5 or 6 guys that are huge for this team, but who I'm going to choose is Chucky Lozano. He was kind of the first big signing, the first DP. He's gonna be, in a sense, the face of our franchise and the build up to their inaugural season here in 2025 for San Diego. And his record, his career, Napoli and PSV and the Mexican national team and Pachuca in Liga MX, before all of that. He's missed a chunk of the season, the early stages of the season, but he's back. He's got his first goal. He already has 3 assists. And he's pivotal in their attack, right? Just he's dynamic. He's a great passer, has great vision on the field. He kind of floats in those half spaces where, does a defender step to him? Is it a midfielder that drops back and keeps an eye on him? And he's got some good players around him, right? And so for me, I love Anders Djordje and his left foot, man. It's been amazing. But I do think Chucky Lozano back in the starting lineup. He's the one that. If you don't know San Diego FC well, if you haven't watched any of their games, watch this guy because he's pivotal in their attack, and he's a hard worker, man. He'll get back behind the ball and defend with discipline. Chucky Lozano is my San Diego player to watch.
Yeah, definitely worth noting. Especially this is a guy who had come off. He's coming from Europe, was at BSV, if I'm thinking of the correct club that he coming from in the Netherlands. And Napoli, his time there as well, became a champion and won the Scudetto there with Napoli, a historic team in Italy, and so he has that experience in Italy. On top of the fact that he's kind of one of those important pieces, in his prime with the Mexican national team. This is not a nobody. This is somebody, if anything, most people would know and need to keep an eye out on. In terms of a Rapids player that I want to keep tabs on, is going to be Sam Vines.
Yeah.
So Sam Vines, of course, as we mentioned, he made his first appearance in 2025 this year at Vancouver when he came off the bench. And with Vinesy, I just love how he provides this verticality and these attacking options for whether he is an option himself or is whipping in balls for a Hafen Navajo or somebody else to pick up a second ball. That's like a Cole or a Djordje, whoever, right? So with Sam Vines, if you hear the phrase sometimes that like the best defense is offense, right? And I feel like Sam Vines is emblematic of that, where yes, he's a left back, he's a defender primarily more than anything, but the way he moves up the pitch provides this verticality for the Rapids on the left-hand side with crosses, with interplay, with Djordje and Cole, whoever it may be. He provides a lot of options in that sense in terms of your best defense being attacked. So Sam Vines for me in terms of obviously needing to defend against like an Anders Djordje with the cover of Maxu being on the left-hand side, so with him or whoever else, if that's the left winger with him that's helping defend to double team somebody if they need to. For me, Sam Vines is going to be the guy to keep an eye out on the Rapids side for this match against San Diego.
I like that shout, and we obviously don't know who's going to start sitting here on a Monday morning, but Vines getting minutes back in Vancouver is huge, and so if he is on the pitch on Saturday night, I think you make a good point, man. Sometimes the best way to defend down one side is by attacking on that side, and if you make Djordje have to come back more often than not and limit what he's able to do go forward, limit the amount of time he spends going forward, that's huge. Now with that being said, Vinesy or whoever plays on the left side is going to find moments where they're going to have to defend well and defend with energy and maybe keep Djordje on his right foot and away, because he will come into those half spaces and look to operate with that left foot. But I think that's a good shout, because a lot of San Diego's attack will go down that right side. They can attack at all phases of the field, but down that right side with Djordje is a key area for San Diego.
Yeah, in terms of the keys that we're looking at, right? What's something in particular particular in general that you're looking for from this match as a key to the match, Drew?
I want to simplify my key to the match for the Rapids on Saturday, and it's a little bit of play off of what happened in Vancouver last Saturday night. Is just you have to eliminate just the careless mistakes, and in particular in possession, right? You have to be cleaner on the ball. You have to be better on the ball. In particular, in moments where you're either luring or you're building, right? Too many careless losses of possession in Vancouver really punished you because you weren't making Vancouver run side to side. You weren't making them chase, right? You got the ball. You felt like you had to score right away. And maybe it's because you conceded relatively early in this match. But like I said earlier, it just becomes this vicious cycle. You win it, you give it right back to them. It kills your legs, it kills your mentality, and it does the complete opposite to the other side. And San Diego is a team that if you give them the ball too often, even more so than Vancouver, they're going to make you run. They're going to make you chase side to side. They're going to create opportunities for themselves. And so I think, yes, both in transition and in build-out play, you need to be cleaner and more quality on the ball. Make them chase a little bit. Get them going side to side like you did against Charlotte 2 weeks ago here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, where the altitude will set in, right, over the course of 60, 70, 80 minutes. If you're able to make them chase a little bit, it will wear down on them quicker than they're used to. And then in transition, just the quality of your pass, the quality of the final touch, your shot, your selection needs to be better as well. And so for me, it's just eliminate those just careless mistakes where you've just won the ball back and you give it right back to them, because San Diego's going to feast on those.
Yeah, absolutely. On my end, at least, in something I wanted to keep an eye out for this match, as it pertains to the Rapids specifically, is the midfield. This is something I had mentioned before, and actually the match previous to leading up to Vancouver, right? If you can win the midfield, that you can win this match. And I say this that you can apply it in a very general sense, right? But I think if you can win the midfield in this match in particular against the San Diego side with a really good midfield, I'd say one of the best in the league between Luca De La Torre, Anibal Godoy, and Jeppe Vershkov, who have shown that they're very, very good. If you can win the midfield and be able to shut these guys down, right? If you're pressing them when they're in possession and limiting their time on the ball, if you counter press them, if you do lose the ball in possession, just keep them on their half or limit the amount of time that these guys are on the ball. You can do that. I think you can limit really just in general what San Diego can do, because I feel like a lot of what goes through this team is through the midfield, and those three guys in particular. So if you can just completely stop that trio and that midfield that San Diego has, which I think is one of the best in the league, you have a very good chance, especially here at altitude, to get all 3 points. It's
a good shout. And you do that with compactness. You do that with energy, being alert, your rest defense, right? All those things together. The middle of the field is still huge, and even in the modern game where teams want to go in transition and everything. But you win the middle of the field against a team like San Diego, you're right, Mike. You set yourself up for a very good opportunity to beat this team here at home.
Yep. And I know a certain Chris Sharpie would appreciate us mentioning set pieces as well. That's his bread and butter. That's something he works on very, very diligently with the group going into the weekend. And I think yet to score off a set piece, this group this season, but we know it's in there. You have big bodies like Maxu, Cheeto, Ian if he's in there, right? But this is a team that prides itself on trying to earn some goals and some moments off set pieces, especially with Chris Sharp, our goalkeeper and assistant coach, that works very, very diligently on those. So that'll definitely play a role into outside with everything else that we've mentioned. That'll play a role into how potentially this match will go on Saturday.
Absolutely, it always does. I feel like.
I think that does it, Drew, right? Is that, or I feel like we could talk more Rapids for longer, but we've got a time constraints here.
We could, and I just want to add, we talked about it a little bit, but I expect this team to bounce back.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
they Chris Armas, he gets these guys going, man, and it was a pretty quiet locker room after the match at BC Place on Saturday night, and much like the Portland result, we bounced back from against Charlotte. I expect the same. I expect a very focused week lead up in preparation for San Diego. The shiny new toy in Major League Soccer. They're coming, to altitude. Could they tweak things a little bit? I don't think they will. They've made it pretty clear, Mikey Veras, this is how we want to play. This is what we're going to do. This is our identity. And so Charlotte came in and tried to be exactly who they are 2 weeks ago, and it didn't go well for them. And so I expect the Rapids to bounce back as they've had a tendency to do in the last year plus, and get a positive result here in front of the home fans on Saturday night.
Yeah, this is a place where obviously, I mean, naturally any team is going to feel comfortable at home, right? But I think the Rapids feel particularly comfortable at home at Dick's Sporting Goods Park when folks are showing up the way they do, right? The fans, I mean, you can't commend them enough, be it as we saw, right, in the bitter cold against an LAFC and CCC, or if it's like blistering hot on a 4th of July, like the fans have always shown up to get behind their Burgundy boys and give them the support, especially for matches like this, right, where it's really important to try to course correct and make sure you find yourself right on the right path again and get things going for the rest of the season. So, again, still early in the season, but sometimes there's moments like this, right? There isn't a trophy on the line, there isn't something on the line, but a moment to kind of course correct and get yourself sorted out so that hopefully for the rest of the season it's a more positive outlook. So an important match against San Diego FC here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. And as I mentioned earlier off the top, that this is a match that obviously you can catch on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. That's going to be happening this Saturday, April 12th, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff. But listen, man, nothing beats being at Dick's Sporting Goods Park on a Saturday evening.
It's supposed to be a nice warm day,
it's
too.
It's supposed to be nice and warm, too. Like, hopefully it's
Put
not
your burgundy on.
Yes, dude.
We might be in the Headwaters kit this match, I think, actually.
We'll have to double-check the Matrix and
Regardless,
see what it
put your
says.
burgundy on. Put your Headwaters
Burgundy,
kit
Headwaters,
on.
anything you got. And, like, but it's always nice to come out here,
It is, man.
just to Dick's Sporting Goods Park, soak up the atmosphere with fellow Rapids fans and supporters, and just see everybody, see them in the flesh getting to play. That for me is always the best. So if you guys have the chance to do so, definitely come out to Dick's Sporting Goods Park this Saturday to catch your Burgundy boys against San Diego FC. Anything before we close out, Djordje?
Just get your camera ready, get your bright orange shoes on, and get down there and do your thing on Saturday night. And I expect the fans to do their thing on Saturday
Yeah, dude. You'll be on the radio call.
I'll be on the radio
with Mr.
call.
Connor Cape.
And I'll be a goofball on Out of Bounds like I always am. So I'll be here ready to go.
If anything, if not even for the Rapids, for your Burgundy boys, just catch Djordje being an absolute, making a fool of himself.
Just a menace.
Bounds.
I can't believe they let me do this thing.
So that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of the Colorado Rapids podcast. My thanks to the production staff, Rich, Miles, and, of course, my good friend and Rapids legend, Drew Moore. I've been your host, Mike Rivolo. That's going to do it for us for this week. We'll catch you guys on the next one.